After years of relationship, my husband wants to end things with me just because of a dumb joke. Have you ever been in a situation where a harmless joke within your friend group spiraled out of control? Well, that's what happened to me, and now my husband doesn't want to see me anymore. It all started with a silly prank that we thought would bring some laughter and fun. But as the joke escalated, it crossed a line that we never intended to cross. Some things are better left as they are because you actually don't know the outcome of them. It's so sad that I chose to do a childish and careless act just to make my husband jealous. You know the phrase that says, "Let bygones be bygones"? I should have used it. My husband, who was not part of the prank, felt deeply hurt and betrayed by my involvement. Despite my apologies and attempts to make things right, he refuses to even talk to me. It's a painful reminder of how a thoughtless action can have serious consequences on our relationships. I never imagined that a simple joke could lead to such a rift between us. Now, I'm left grappling with the aftermath and trying to repair the damage that has been done. I had never thought that one day I would find myself being one of my alpha husband's brutal revenge. You know, when you are too carefree, you end up doing things that would ruin your life and the second party's life. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I was just having fun, but I guess the fun had me instead. A very small mistake took me back to the hellhole I thought I had left. I regret the day I made that mistake. I thought my husband was not going to find out. We were playing a game, you know. Just having fun with a couple of friends at a party, not knowing that what I had thought was a game was actually cheating. The worst part was the fact that I had to realize it the hard way. I was fooled by my friends and did things that I had thought were harmless and fun only for it to ruin my life. I know someone who once had the same experience or had gone through the same situation that I was facing. How did you pick up the broken pieces and fix things regarding this situation? I know that my husband is a very sensitive person and he doesn't like stupid jokes, but still I went ahead with it. I really thought we were all just having fun only for him to take the joke personally and react in a cruel way. I really regret even starting with the prank game because now it has put me in a very tough situation and it took away the love of my life. Till today, I still don't know how to make John understand that it wasn't my intention to hurt his feelings and try to fix things between us. So I was married to John Johnson, male 33. I, female 33. First met him at the Cheesecake Factory in Dubai. I had gone there because I was craving for some cheesecake. The Cheesecake Factory is my favorite spot, but that day I don't know what had happened to the bakers because I got a very unpleasant cheesecake and it was a bummer for me. So I asked to speak to the manager because the cake tasted like it was made 5 days ago. As I was busy arguing with the employee, John came and offered to help me. I told John my complaint and he kindly took my complaint seriously and told the employees to fix the issue. I don't know if I would say that it was my lucky day at that time, but everything was just going smoothly because they even gave me a free cheesecake. John asked for my number so that he would make it up to me for the inconvenience caused. I told him that he didn't have it, but the guy assisted, so I gave him my number. 3 days later, he gave me a call and asked for us to meet at some restaurant in Barsha Heights. I wasn't sure if I should agree or reject the request, but I ended up agreeing anyway. So we met and we actually clicked, you know. Our souls clicked and we talked like we were getting to know each other. He then said that he is actually the owner of the Cheesecake Factory. I really liked the way he was humble and handled my matter as a priority when I had an issue with the employee and a cheesecake. We started getting along, communicating more via social media, especially on WhatsApp. He was a very good advisor. He was very smart, charming, and all that. I really liked the guy the first time we had spent time together. Was it too early for me to catch feelings for the guy? I mean, is there a time frame that was put to fall for a person? I didn't know how I would confess my feelings for the guy, so I decided to just go with the friendship flow, even though it wasn't really easy having to always chat with this person, and sometimes going out with him while knowing that you have deep love feelings for the man. Our friendship got stronger each day as much as I had a huge crush on him, but I had closed my crush to a small cage. At least we were friends and we were spending more time together. I was not used to Dubai, so he would take me to different places to visit, different ice cream shops. There was this weekend when he came to my aunt's house and asked me to accompany him somewhere. I didn't ask much, so I went with him, only to find out that we were going to Jumeirah Beach Residence, which was 35 minutes drive away from Barsha Heights. We were friends for like 6 months until I couldn't hold myself any longer. So I confessed my feelings to John, and to my surprise, he was actually surprised by the bomb that I had just dropped. I won't lie and say I wasn't nervous when I was confessing my undying love to John because I'm scared. We went quiet for a few moments then, when my mind and heart had given up on thinking that maybe he would accept my proposal. But little did I know that the guy was actually digesting what I had told him. So we actually kissed and I just froze, like I couldn't believe it, So that's when our relationship started. I was not regretting ever confessing my love for John. I mean, he was a very good partner to me. I couldn't ask for any other partner except for him. Yes, we had our fair share of ups and downs, but we had managed to break through everything. John was a God-fearing man and I wasn't, but we respected each other's beliefs and religions. We supported each other, and we decided that we wanted to actually grow old together through thick and thin, even through darkness and light. I loved John with every being in me, and I still love him even now, which is surprising after the damage that he had caused in my life. After a year of getting to know each other, he decided that he wanted to grow old with me. So he proposed in front of our families and friends. I was just the happiest woman alive, and everything was just going smoothly. John did everything for me. We got married 3 months after he had proposed. He made me an honest woman. Even though our marriage didn't last for long, memories of my relationship with John will always remain constant. We had our share of bad and good times. We really loved each other. That's what I know for sure. The following year, he proposed to me, and obviously I said yes. I saw the love of my life in him. Even though he was a bit insecure, maybe not a bit, but I loved him so much. I didn't see myself with anyone else other than him. He was my ride or die, my joy and happiness. I fell hard for him every day, not knowing that my small, stupid mistakes would cost me everything, including my love. Was it being naive or being forward? We got married after 6 months. Well, we didn't want to rush things, so we took our own sweet time to plan for our perfect wedding. I had moved out of my aunt's house after he proposed. We were living happily ever after. You know when you feel that she is the one, and you don't want anything to get in between you, which was how I felt. He was everything and more, not knowing that he would become my downfall someday. A year later, I fell pregnant. Our lives were great. I was so happy that I was going to be a mom. Not just being a mom, but the fact that I was going to have a child with the person I loved so much. 9 months later, I gave birth to a very adorable baby girl. She looked so much like my husband, and I loved her so much. She was and still is the best gift God has given me. A year later, I had asked my aunt to come over to my marital home with her husband because I had planned a surprise retirement and welcome back party for him since he was no longer going to be working overseas but coming back home. I wanted to appreciate him while he was still alive. That man had done so much for me. He was the best uncle-father I had ever had. Both Uncle John and my aunt deserved to get their roses while still alive. During that year, John had started acting really strange. He was no longer spending time with me, but he would take our daughter only and saying it was a daughter and daddy bonding session. That was actually a very lame excuse because even at home things were no longer fun. It was like we were forcing things even though our conversations were no longer fun and full of happiness. I had thought he was cheating because one day I had confronted him about his sudden behavior, and he looked at me like I had grown horns or I was crazy. So I decided to check his gadgets. Maybe he was using them, but I found nothing. I knew and felt that he was hiding something from me, but I couldn't get myself to think that whatever he was hiding was actually about me. One summer evening, I was preparing for my uncle's retirement/welcome home party. I had told John that I would be hosting a party for my uncle, so I needed him to be there to help me. That day, he had promised me that he would be home early, but he didn't keep his promise. Why was I surprised? Because he had been absent for a few days. He would go to work very early in the morning and come back late when our daughter would have even gone to sleep. When I asked him about it, he would say he was caught up at work. I couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that told me that something was off. I kept wondering why John was so distant and absent lately. Yes, I found out that he was not cheating, but there was something that had made him too busy for his wife, because even our intimate moments were no longer the same. It was like he was doing it to satisfy himself more than the both of us. I wanted to find out what his problem was, but I just didn't know where to start. I had thought I knew John, but his behavior showed me that I didn't know him at all. So as the guests were arriving for my uncle's party, my uncle and his wife came, but I noticed that my uncle was a bit off as he tried pretending to be happy. I asked him on the side to speak with him, so I asked him what was going on. I had thought he was sick or something, but that was not the case. He had recently opened his coffee shop with the money he had gotten when it was his last day overseas. About a month later, John came back from work and gave me an invitation to his friend's wedding, so he wanted me to be his +1. I had known their friends and their partners for a while, but we were not close at that time because I was still a newbie in John's life. I accepted the invitation and I knew that I had to find a stunning dress to match with my husband. The big day came and I looked really fabulous in my dress. I was introduced to some of the groups that I haven't met, and I don't want to lie, they have a vibe with great energy. Time went on, and John decided to celebrate his birthday by hosting his friends for a birthday lunch braai. I didn't have a problem with that. I knew that it would give me a chance to get to know his other friends and their partners, so I was looking forward to it. John had been a sweetheart at that time, and he was less going to meetings with his business associates in some hotel. As much I had wanted to spend time with John on his birthday, but the braai idea was not a bad one. His birthday came, the friends came, and we were having so much fun. Conversations were flowing. We stayed together until very late, but we were enjoying everyone's company. The girls came with the idea of pranking our partners or playing the dare game, whereby you will have to share your deepest secret or tell us what is happening in your life and how intimate your moments are with your partner. I wasn't sure about those ideas, but they sounded fun, so I agreed to participate also, not knowing that it would actually put me in hot waters even though we didn't play it during John's birthday braai. 2 weeks later, a married couple who are John's friends invited us to their 10th year anniversary. I was so happy for them, I had wished that I would also get to 10 years of marriage with John, but I didn't know that it would actually end on a 3rd year of marriage. We honored the invite and made sure to look the part and match the theme. Frank, male 36, and Christina, female 34, the married couple, were what we call a match made in heaven. Their love was so precious and pure. I just loved how they loved each other and did everything together. It all began innocently enough, as these things often do. Our friend group had always been known for our playful banter and lighthearted pranks. But little did I know that one careless joke would unravel everything I held dear. It was a typical Friday evening, and we were gathered at our usual spot, Frank's backyard, sipping beers and swapping stories. As the laughter flowed freely, someone brought up the topic of superstitions. That's when it happened, the catalyst for the chaos that followed. In a moment of sheer spontaneity, I blurted out a ridiculous idea. Wouldn't it be hilarious if we staged a fake breakup between me and John just to mess with everyone? I chuckled, thinking it would be nothing more than a fleeting moment of amusement. But the idea caught fire among our group. Before I knew it, we were all huddled together, brainstorming ways to make the fake breakup seem authentic. We planned every detail meticulously, from dramatic social media posts to tearful phone calls to friends. After the whole thing, Christina reminded us of the games that we had planned to play when we were at my house during John's braai. The first dare came to me, and I was dared to tell John a serious joke stating where he is lacking. I knew that was a tough one, but I had to play it, In my mind, I was just telling myself that it's just a game and nothing was going to happen, so I should participate. I blurted out that I was no longer enjoying our intimate moments because he is always tired and sometimes busy, so I was thinking of seeking intimacy outside our marriage. The following week, we put our plan into action. I pretended to be distraught, posting cryptic messages on social media about heartbreak and betrayal. John played along, offering comfort to our concerned friends and family members because they didn't know about the game. The game was full of fun, but little did I know that playing it was like playing with my marriage because it didn't end very well, and I regret ever accepting the challenge. At first, it was all in good fun. Our friends fell for the ruse hook, line, and sinker, offering sympathy and support. But as the days passed, I began to realize the gravity of what we had done. John grew distant, his once warm and affectionate demeanor replaced by a cold detachment. He avoided me, barely speaking more than a few words at a time. I tried to brush it off as part of the act, but deep down, I knew something had changed between us. Finally, one evening, John sat me down for a serious conversation. His eyes were filled with hurt and disappointment as he confessed that he couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. He couldn't understand how I could joke about something as sacred as our relationship. I didn't understand why he was so worked up because the game instructions were clear. It was just a game, meaning we were just joking, but he took it to heart. We had a heated argument about what I had said at Christina's house. It even affected our daughter. That kids sense tension, so my daughter also sensed the tension, and it wasn't nice. John was really at me. Even if I tried to apologize, he wouldn't care about what I was saying. He only cared about his daughter, and that was hurting deeply. I even decided to be a stay-home mom just because I was respecting him, since he wanted me to be a housewife. But we had spoken about that and came to an agreement that I would do only remote jobs. And he decided to do such an evil act on me. What did I do wrong to him? The way I was shuddered and disappointed led to not being a fully present mother to our daughter. John was like my housemate because we were no longer sleeping in one bedroom and we were like strangers. Days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months. So one of those days, John came back very early from work and he didn't look too well. I tried asking him what was going on, but he didn't tell me. Instead, he looked at me like I was the most disgusting thing he had ever laid his eyes on. I got really confused because I had thought that we had forgiven each other for the game that happened at Christina's house, not knowing that the buster had actually found out that I had kissed a guy because of a game. So I asked him again, getting worried because he was not even happy to see our daughter, so I was wondering what may be the problem. Instead of answering, he just threw his phone at me. Then he started shouting, which is what I did despite him. He shouts like he is reprimanding a child, and that usually takes us to an argument. I looked at the phone that he had thrown at me, and I got the shock of my life. I couldn't even argue with him or deny because the picture in the video was right before my eyes. I didn't know what to say, nor do you know. I tried apologizing to him, but he wasn't having it. He wanted me gone. He told me right in my face that he doesn't want to see me anymore, saying that I had made him a fool for far too long. I spent the whole week in the hospital because of the state that my mind was in. I'd been getting sick every now and then, only to find out that I had lost my unborn child that I didn't even know about. My mind and heart was shuttered. A day before I got discharged from the hospital, my husband's lawyer came to see him. He left another envelope that I didn't even bother opening, but I took it home with me the next day. So when I had settled well at home, I remembered the envelope and opened it. The things the envelope contained left me in awe. My heart stopped for a moment. In the envelope, there were pictures of me and my male friend kissing each other. It looked like we were dating. I couldn't believe how my husband had got the pictures. I didn't understand why he would send his lawyer to deliver the pictures to me, and I saw nothing wrong in what I did, in my world or mine. Kissing was not and should not be considered as cheating. I mean, no feelings were attached. It was fun, nothing else. So after the pictures were delivered, the lawyer called me again, saying the divorce process had to come to a final decision and requested to see me along with my husband on a certain date. I honored his request and went to meet up with him and my husband. The only thing that made me agree to the meeting was because I had a lot of questions to ask my husband. One fateful day, the day of the meeting came and my husband was really divorcing me, and his reasons for the divorce were that he had lost trust in me, and I had not been faithful to our marriage. The fact that I had found solace in another man's arms and left him in our house to take care of our daughter. I thought he understood that I was going through grief, and I was not myself. I tried defending myself in the picture case, and the lawyer told me exchanging saliva or kissing another person outside my marriage is considered cheating, even if I had thought it was an innocent friendship kiss. But the fact that I had spent time and kissed another person in the name of friendship is cheating. I begged him to forgive me. I cried and acted like a lunatic, but he was just not bugging. I didn't know that and never thought of it as cheating because me and the guy were only friends. I didn't take him as another thing and never thought of him that way. I loved my husband so much, but I guess the only thing I never did was respect my wedding vows and my husband. I didn't know, okay. One moment I was happy. The next I was devastated by an argument that we had about the joke and found comfort in alcohol. That alcohol led me to do something that I had thought I was doing just for fun. I guess nothing stays in the dark. I felt so ashamed. Doing things in the name of fun sometimes leads us to our downfall. So I ended up signing the papers, meaning I was actually letting go of my husband, our love, our vows, and our family. I asked the lawyer what I was benefiting from the divorce, and he told me that I would be getting nothing rather than the house I was living in. So I asked my husband to unfreeze my accounts, and he told me that my accounts were fine. It was just that they didn't have any money. I knew he was crazy, but I had never thought it was to that extent. How could he do something so evil to the mother of his child? As I had thought that was all, he then dropped a very large and a killer bombshell to me, saying that he was taking full custody of our daughter, and that I was not fit enough to be a mother, so he was taking full responsibility to our daughter. A few weeks later, he filed for full custody of our daughter, stating that I was not fit to be a mother. On top of that, he blocked all my bank cards. I didn't know about that until I tried swapping the card in the petrol station, so I called my advisor, and I was actually told that my cards were blocked. When I got home, I found out that he had actually taken my clothes and threw them outside. The doors were locked and changed, meaning I no longer had access to the house anymore. Mind you, that time I didn't have gas in my car, so I didn't know how I was going to get home from Dammock Hill. My ex-husband was evil and psychopathic. The signs were there, but I didn't pay any attention to them. I was so much in love and thought I had found my soulmate, but I found my worst nightmare and downfall. I couldn't believe that he did all that just because of a lousy kiss. It wasn't like I was dating the guy, but he destroyed my life, all in the name of revenge for a kiss. A few months later, I had to try and fix my life bit by bit. John did a number on me, so it wasn't easy having to start afresh. Fortunately, I found a job as a waitress in one of the restaurants nearby. It was not easy, but I had to try and pick up life and better myself. I had no one but myself, so it was time to focus on me and do me. And the good thing was that John's parents had allowed me to see my daughter and spend time with her. I prayed every day for karma to visit John one day. Fortunately, it did. All his operations came out and he was arrested. I vowed to myself to never fall in love again or have a crush on someone. I have learnt my lesson. Do you think I handled the whole situation better, or I was a coward and naive to allow John to destroy my life like that? Please advise me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I realized the extent of the damage our stupid joke had caused. I begged for forgiveness, but John's heart was broken, and he couldn't bring himself to trust me again. Our friend group's harmless prank had cost me the love of my life. As I sit alone now, surrounded by the echoes of laughter that once filled our home, I can't help but wonder, was the joke really worth it? You know when a person says they were drowning in deep, muddy waters? I was that person. I was drowning in muddy water and I couldn't swim. I resorted to finding closure in alcohol. I became what my mother was when she was divorced by my father. At that time, I understood why my mother was an alcoholic. My life was down and out. I had lost the only person who showered me with love and care and gave me a very beautiful daughter. Now I had lost that daughter, plus something that was so dear in my heart, my company. I was really depressed and wished to just go far away where there were no troubles and sorrows. 6 months later, my mother told me to stop having a pity party because it will not bring back the things that I had lost, including my daughter, but instead it would take me straight to the morgue, and when that happens, I would not be able to fight nor see my daughter ever again. Those words made me think again about life, so I took the money that I had saved from my company and the one I had got when I got divorced and used it to fix myself. I went to the rehabilitation center for 6 months while attending AA meetings when I was inside. By the time I came out, I was a whole new person. I had discovered what my worth was and what I wanted. I started by asking for at least a joint custody of my daughter, which I got by the grace of God. I went through a very tough depression phase for almost a year, and I had thought I was going to lose my life in the process. Everything was too much for me to handle. But there was one thing I was proud of that I had done, and that was saving myself from the greedy and selfish bastard. I was glad that my mother came through for me when John threw out my clothes. My mother found me a therapist that did house calls, and I was grateful for that because I didn't want to face the world, you know. I was somehow scared that John would see me or temper with my car tires. This time it showed that he was just obsessed with destroying my life. I couldn't leave my daughter alone. The therapy sessions went on for months because sometimes I would not want to open up, but I eventually got help and decided to stand up for myself. John was sentenced to 25 years in prison for scamming a businessman in Chicago, and other charges came up when the police continued with the investigation. I was so relieved that he was finally away from me and my family, and I had vowed to never ever think I know better. I vowed to listen to my mother whenever she gives me warnings. After John got sentenced, I became free again. I became myself, and decided to take my acting career seriously, while I continued being a waitress on the side. After that, I never went back to my matrimonial house. I continued staying with my mother, and our lives were in so much peace and happiness. I realized that I didn't know what peace and happiness was when I was with John because I was blinded by the love I had for him. But now I can proudly say I am free and at peace. I'm the person who made rules for myself and never allowed anyone or anything to change that. I lived my life for me without looking for validation from others. But when I fell in love with John, all of that changed. I lost myself. I became his puppet, his submissive wife. I followed his rules and did everything the way he wanted to, all because of love and being committed to the relationship, even though it was very much toxic. But I stayed and held on to the hot steel even when it had started to burn my skin. It's not easy being in a relationship whereby you have to compromise yourself just because you want to make your partner happy. It has never worked like that. I know that some would be surprised if I were to say that I still love my ex-husband and I miss him so much every day. My heart wanted me to fight for our relationship and find a common solution to the problem. But why try to help a person who doesn't need help? It was like he was somehow possessed by a controlling demon. So when it was an active mode of controlling him, he would want to be in control also. John was like a person who had multiple personality disorder, even though I can't and couldn't confirm it. But the way he was doing things, his manipulative and controlling tendencies seemed like he was pushed by something or someone to do it, to satisfy it. One thing I regret about myself was that I didn't or never gave myself enough time to learn more about John. I mean, it didn't take us too long to get married, from being friends to being boyfriend and girlfriend to being husband and wife. All of those stages happened within 1 year, if I am not mistaken. Everything happened too fast, and I was blindly in love to notice anything on our dating stage. Please tell me if the decisions I had taken and made were good moves. I mean, half of my heart still loves the guy, but the other hates him with passion. My daughter sometimes wants to visit him in jail, but I do not allow them because I do not want anything to do with John. What should I do? Please tip me here because I am lost and I don't know what to do. I want to hear from you. Redditors, what should I have done? Yes, I had hopes that he would eventually change and become the man I had fallen in love with. I thought he would eventually realize that he was the one with the problem and try to change it with me on his side, supporting him as his wife. I had spoken with him a lot about his behavior and begged him to at least talk to a therapist so he would be able to take out whatever that he had and get help. Instead, he would just brush everything off and dismiss my opinion like it was nothing. Though according to my own knowledge and perspective, I don't know what I was doing. I would say it was being ungrateful and not being able to be patient with my husband. I wish things were done differently. Yes, it's too late. But I regret every stupid decision that I had made. Now I have lost everything, and there is really no one to blame but myself. I don't know how I can fix all of this and get forgiveness for myself. I know everything showed that I did everything willingly, even though I couldn't remember the following, but only God knows the truth. I didn't know that just one joke would actually land me where I am now. Am I being a fool or naive if I say I miss John so much and our daughter misses him too? I'd been thinking of visiting him in prison, but I don't know what I would say to him when I get there. Yes, I want him to be punished for being fake and scamming me along with other people that he had scammed. But my heart still longs for him. I can't even talk to my mother about this because I know that she will freak out when she hears about my heart desire. So please help me find a way to approach both families about this issue. What do you say I should do? Please help me. You know, I have only seen or heard about cheating ex-wives who later tried to come back in the name of fixing things and in the name of love on TV. I had thought those who allowed their cheating ex-wives back into their lives were fools or naive, not knowing that one day I'll be facing the same thing those men are facing out there. Mine was worse because she tried coming back with a baby that was not mine. The audacity. Women are evil and very manipulative species. They use the fact that you love them even after the breakup, you still loved them, and use that to their favor. I still can't believe that I once found myself in the same situation. I almost got trapped with a child that was not mine. If I didn't get a wake-up call and took matters into my own hands, I would have been a father to another man's child. If there is someone who once found himself in the same situation as mine, how did you deal with this kind of face a day? Let me tell you about my ordeal. So I, M44, married this humble, down-to-earth, and loving wife. Her name was Faith, F34. I loved her so much, there was nothing I didn't and wouldn't do for her, but she took all that for granted. Faith and I first met at the year-end party at work that was hosted by my boss 6 years ago. Her beauty caught my heart, her humbleness, and how she carried herself made me love her. When I first saw her, she was with some of my female colleagues. I didn't know how she knew my colleagues, but I later found out that she was the supervisor's little sister. I was working at an insurance company, name withheld due to personal reasons, in Richards Bay as a financial advisor. Let me first tell you a bit more about myself so it would be easy to understand my story. I was born and raised in the village of Richards Bay in KwaZulu-Natal. I am the person who they call a farm Julia in the suburbs or in the city. I was raised in a big family by very strict parents when it comes to our culture. My father used to say that if one of his children reached the age of 30 and they have not found a wife for himself who will bear him grandchildren and grow our household, he would personally look or arrange a marriage for that son, because it would have shown that the son was either a coward or gay. So I was under a lot of pressure because I was the third born in my father's male children out of 5 and 4 girls. I don't know and don't understand who came with the rule that stated all the men who live in villages must have many children or have 2 wives to grow the family's surname. My 2 older brothers were married around the village. It was easy for them because they got married to their childhood girlfriends. And I, on the other hand, sighed. I didn't know if I was the problem or I had a problem because I was not a person who was interested in courting ladies. The only thing I was obsessed about were my books, so my brothers would sometimes call me gay because even if I came across a very beautiful lady in our village, I wouldn't have the courage to approach her. I was scared of rejection and thought that I was not their type of man they wanted because I was a bookworm. So one day my father came home and called a meeting with his sons. I thought it was something serious that concerned a family or his health. Mind you, at the time I was in the middle of my exams, I took a distance learning course at UNISA, University of South Africa. I did accounting and business management, which was a course I chose because I loved accounting and managing businesses. It was a 3-year course, and I was on my second, going to a third year in a few months. Okay, so father called us to a big house. We call it a family house. We made sure to always leave everything, no matter how busy we were, and comply with father's summons. We had to respect his requests. So when we had all gathered, father started telling us about the issues we were facing at home. What surprised me was that I was also in the issues. When I had just reached 30 years, my father announced that he had found me a wife. He found me a wife while I was in the middle of my exams. That made me mad because it somehow showed that my father didn't care about my goals and education. Instead, he wanted me to find a wife that I would impregnate so she can bear him grandchildren. I didn't argue with him after his announcement because I knew that if I did, I would be in hot waters. You know, when parents think they know everything and know what's best for everyone is what my father was doing. He also announced that I would have to meet the girl before he takes the next step. I didn't agree with him because I was in the middle of my exams, so I didn't need any destruction. But he threatened to disown me if I went against his word, so I had no choice but to obey. He was the head of the family after all. I missed my mother so much because she was able to soften her husband's hard heart. Our mother passed away when I had just turned 25. It was the hardest time of our lives. I had thought my parents were soulmates and no one would get in between them, but life and the universe had other plans. Well, more like my extended family elders had other plans for their relationship. So as most people know that in most villages, especially African villages, they perform witchcraft and all those weird things. You survive if you have a very strong ancestor and believe in them along with God. It's more like survival of the fittest. So the extended family elders once called my father and told him that he needed a second wife because one woman wouldn't be able to handle a big household all alone, so she needed a helper. Time went by and the second wife came and she was introduced to us. She had only one child who passed away when he turned 15. The reason for the course of his passing was not clear, but when they went to a traditional healer, the healer told them that the child had passed on because of his mother's sins. The second wife started accusing our mother of witchcraft, saying she had killed her child. The accusation and jealousy went on until my mother started getting sick. She didn't know what was going on with her because she had suddenly got sick. The sickness kept getting worse, so my brothers and I went to the healer again and tried to get help for our mother. We were told that my father had allowed a snake into our home, so since she lost a child because of her doings, instead of repenting, she got bitter and she was on a mission to destroy or kill everything that had any relation with our mother. 3 months later, our mother passed on in her sleep. It was not believable because she had started looking better, but she was fooling us. Her passing made father blame himself for our mother's passing. He became cold-hearted and more strict after the second wife got arrested. My elder brothers didn't believe that our mother had just died in her sleep. So they went to the mortuary authorities and requested for a post-mortem to find her actual course of death. When the results came back, we found out that she was poisoned. So my brothers came back with police officers and the wife was arrested. I have never been so infuriated like that in my life. I was angry and wanted the second wife's blood. Jail was going to be too soft for her. She deserved a serious punishment. A few days later, my father organized a meeting with this girl. Actually, he came home with this girl, the one he said he had found for me. He introduced her as Nozipo, meaning gift. The girl was beautiful, I won't lie, but she looked too young and too forward for me. I didn't want to disappoint my father or get on his bad side, so I went with the flow. The girl and I started talking, spending time together as my father had suggested. I told the girl that whatever that was happening between us, she shouldn't be comfortable because I was doing this for my father to get off my back. Me agreeing to the nonsense didn't mean I loved her and would ever love her. Forward and stupid girls who had no ambition and goals were not the type of girls I would want in my life. So Nosifo, gift, was not the cup of tea I would drink if it was up to me. But we have to respect our elders' orders and requests, right? We hung out a couple of times. She would sometimes see that I was not interested in whatever she was saying. She bored me to the core. We developed a pretend relationship because the way my father wanted grandchildren, it's like he was dying, so he didn't want to die before seeing all his children's kids. Nosifo and I slept together for obvious reasons. So during our planned relationship, she kept complaining that I was a boring boyfriend. I was too serious for her. How would you be a fun boyfriend to someone you didn't even love? She told me that she liked guys who buy at least a slab of chocolate just to make a girl happy, or take her out even if it's going to KFC, and that she wanted to feel special like those girls who live in the city. I didn't understand why she was telling me this. Besides, she was from the rural areas, so I wondered how she knew such things. I then figured that it may be social media influence. So, as we were trying for a child his father wanted, nothing was happening. I then went to a doctor to check what was going on because a lot was happening to me. 1. The girl had to work so hard for my shaft to wake up. 2. If I wanted to get intimate with her, I first had to watch XX videos. And lastly, our intimate session did not last even 10 minutes. It was boring. So I tried to bribe her to break up with me and go back home, but she told my father and the old man was not impressed. Weeks after I had gone to the doctor, I heard rumors that the girl was pregnant, and people from the village believed that the child was mine because she had been seen with me a lot. I ignored all the rumors, and my father took it upon himself to go and pay damages to the girl's family, since I had slept with her and made her pregnant. Months later, the child was born. She had moved to our home because father had paid dowry for her. When the child turned 3 months old, he started getting sick. So in our culture, if a child gets sick randomly, it's issues related to ancestors. When the child is sick, an elder or the head of the family has to burn an incense to speak or appease the ancestors and ask them to stop making the child sick. My father tried burning incense several times, but it didn't budge, which raised an eyebrow. After my father was about to give up, the incense got burnt, but not the way it was supposed to. The smoke was too small, and only a small portion of an incense was burning. The child kept getting sick, and the sickness got worse. I was also worried about the child, so I suggested that we go to a traditional healer to consult. Nosifo started throwing fits, saying she doesn't believe in traditional healers, so we can't take her child there. Okay? Things kept getting worse with a child up until my father called the traditional healer at home, and the traditional healer kept saying the child has to be reunited with his true ancestors, or else he would not get better. We didn't understand at first because we had thought the child was mine. Even though the resemblance was not there, I gave Nosifo the benefit of the doubt for my father's sake. Weeks passed, and some man came home and introduced himself as Brandon, and he was looking for Nosifo. The guy was also from our village, so I didn't understand why Nosifo would just burst if the guy came in peace. The guy narrated his story and told us that he was there to get his child so he can do better by him. I got confused because I had thought the child was mine since I didn't go back to the doctor for the results. He told us that he knew that the child was sick and needed his true family and to be united with his true ancestors, so he was there to take his child. Nosifo got furious to a point that she then told the guy that she kept the baby away from him because he was poor and he wouldn't be able to take care of the child since he was just a herd boy. I got really mad to the point that I dragged Nosifo outside and told her to go because if I were to see her, I was going to do something that would land me in jail. My father was shocked and disappointed because he had trusted the girl. I didn't believe the girl the audacity to tell the poor guy that she agreed to become my fiancé and the mother of my children was because we were affording and had cows, so the child was not going to suffer. Meaning, she had fooled my father to secure the bag. Gold diggers. You know, in rural areas, if you have livestock, you are considered as a rich man or rich family. So at home we had that, and it came as a shock to my father that the girl he liked for me and was ready to pay for her bridal price was a scammer. What she did was a scam, but I knew it the way she was carrying herself. She was not the saint my father thought she was. So my father, along with my uncles, went back to her home to ask back the damage and dowry money because the girl they had thought was a good girl for me turned out to be a gold digger and ended up putting an innocent child's life in jeopardy just because she wanted to secure the bag. Since I kept my focus on books as I was going to graduate later that year, Then I would move to the city and look for a job. After some time I graduated, I wished my mother was there, but then again the universe and God had spoken, but at least Father was there, and he was the proudest father. A few months later, I found a job at an insurance company. At that time, I was going to be just an intern, which was a great stepping stone for me because here in South Africa, you stay at home for years looking for a job with your qualifications. And most of the time, you need connections to get a job. So I thanked God and my ancestors for opening doors for me a few months after I had graduated. A year later, I was given a permanent position, and I couldn't be happier. I loved my job very much. That time, things were going very well on my side. Even at home, Father had stopped pestering me about getting a wife. With the stipend I got from being an intern, I managed to get myself a small apartment because traveling from the city to the villages every day was not going to work since it was too far. Time went by and we were going to close for the festive season holidays. So the CEO of the company had hosted an annual year-end closing party for the staff. The previous year I didn't attend it because I had gone home early. One of my brothers had hosted a ceremony. The party went well, it had a lot of vibe, but my eyes were glued to this one lady. The man who was my supervisor when I was an intern came to where I was and introduced her as Faith, his sister. Faith was a very beautiful woman. No scratch that, she was gorgeous, and the goddess. She had a very nice body, always smiling, shy and humble. Well, I thought she was humble. Her brother left us and we started talking. She was smart too. She had brains and big dreams. That's what I loved most about her. A woman with vision and ambition. She was a lady of class. You would see the way she was carrying herself, the things she wore. She respected and loved herself. So that night we chatted. I was having fun with her up until we heard the CEO delivering his appreciation speech. That was when we realized that the time had flown and we had to go our separate ways. I didn't want to look forward and ask for her number. I mean, as much as she had all the qualities I needed and wanted in a woman, but I couldn't bring myself to ask for her number. Well, more especially after what I had done, even though I didn't love her or caught my heart like how Faith did. But she still took me for a fool, which made me not fully trust women. Instead, she asked for mine, saying we should hang out since she didn't have friends and she liked my company. I gave it to her, not knowing that I was setting myself on a trap, but what would have I done? A week later, she texted me and asked where I was. She was bored. Unfortunately, I was home with my family because we had all agreed that, as much as some of us were working in the city, we had to make sure that during December holidays or any holidays, we would spend them home as a family. So I couldn't leave my family and attend to Faith's needs. We then decided to just chat on WhatsApp. From then, we started talking, from chatting on WhatsApp to calling each other every morning and every night. We became good friends. When I went back to the city, we started going out, in the name of getting to know each other. She then introduced me to different restaurants that I didn't know about in the city. I mean, the only thing I came to the city for was work. So I didn't know much about any fancy restaurants except McDonald's or KFC and retail stores where I bought groceries. Faith loved trying new things. She was adventurous, whereas I was just a village who was obsessed with books and numbers. She taught me a lot that I didn't know about, introduced me to new things like going out, not to clubs, but visiting different places that had fun activities like hiking, mountain climbing, etc. We became very good friends. I appreciated every time I had spent with her. She taught me a lot that I didn't know about. Our friendship was really amazing. It went on until the day she came to my apartment. She had complained of being bored. She was still living with her parents. She was working as a travel agent at Richards Bay Airport, which explained why she was an adventurous person. Okay, so she came to my apartment, we just chilled, talked about random things, played board games until we decided to just watch something on Showmax. She loved watching reality shows like The Real Housewives. She was a huge fan of the Housewives. She would even tell me the kind of husband she would want to spend her life with. Her dream was to be a housewife and be taken care of by her husband. From watching her reality shows, I opted to change to Netflix. She chose romantic comedy movies, which we didn't even finish because we were busy talking during the movie. She surprised me when she kissed me and told me that she had always wanted to taste my lips. Mind you, I had also been controlling myself every time when I was with her. She was a temptation. So when she kissed me, my heart started having palpitations. I decided to go with the flow. I was happy that I had finally kissed the person I had been fantasizing about. She had soft and welcoming lips. When things were about to escalate, I stopped it before we got too far. Time went by. We became what we call friends with benefits. We would satisfy each other whenever we could. I don't know if I was the one or she was the one who caught feelings, but I believe I was. I couldn't continue with the no strings attached or friends with benefits thing, so I told her what I felt. And to my surprise, she said that she felt the same way. I had come to terms that not all women were the same. The time I had spent with Faith made me trust her. Not fully, but I did trust her. I was a free-spirited person when I was with her. I felt alive, you know. It's like she was a missing part in my life. She was that missing chapter in a book. Since both of us had developed strong feelings for each other, our relationship got promoted from being friends to friends, with benefits to an actual couple's relationships. Our relationship was a bliss. We supported and loved each other. After 2 months of dating, she told her brother, my supervisor, about us because she didn't want any awkward vibes between us when he found out. Her words, not mine. The brother obviously gave me a tough time, but eventually accepted the relationship. Time passed, and I told my father that I had found a woman and I saw a future with her. Little did I know that I was just fooling myself. My father was happy at the fact that I had finally found myself a woman after the one he had found for me, who turned out to be a gold digger. So during Easter holidays, I had invited Faith to meet my family, which she gladly accepted. I was somehow nervous about how she would view my background. Not my home, but the village, because she was a girl from the suburbs. When she came home, I first introduced her to my brothers and sisters. I loved the fact that as much as she grew up in the suburbs, she knew how to dress as a respectful woman. She respected occasions and made sure to wear respectfully. My brothers didn't trust her. I understood their fears, but they had no choice but to accept her as the woman in my life. I mean, father wanted grandchildren from all his children, right? So I had found the right person for that, but we were going to adopt since the doctor said I was infertile. 6 months passed. I asked my father to gather the uncles because I wanted them to represent me to the Smith family. In our culture, if you want to take a woman, you have to pay and introduce yourself to the family of your woman. Luckily, they were not too much of suburb people, as Faith's mother was a Zulu woman who knew and respected tradition, but she got married to a Smith family, then she moved to the suburbs. My father and the uncles, along with my 2 elder brothers, went to the Smith family to negotiate on my behalf and introduce myself to my in-laws. Faith's father knew a little about the Zulu tradition, so he had asked Faith's uncles from her mother's side of the family to help him during the negotiations. One thing I knew was that I couldn't wait for my wife. She showed me all the qualities of a good wife. I had hoped that she would be different from the one my father had chosen for me. Another couple of months passed. Everything that needed to be done traditionally was sorted. The only thing that had left was the white wedding. I couldn't be happier. You know, I was with the woman who matched all the qualities I needed in a woman. She made me happy and complete as a man. I just don't understand what has gone wrong. I worked very hard at work, took extra shifts so that I could raise enough money for our wedding and our surprise honeymoon. I had planned to take her to Belito for our honeymoon. I had heard that Belito was a great holiday place, especially for newlyweds. So I made sure to put every cent I got in savings because I didn't want her to contribute a huge portion of money to our wedding. I mean, I was her man, right? So it was my right and responsibility to provide for her. Time went on very fast to a point that our wedding day was approaching. I was happy. We were happy because the day we had been waiting for had finally come. So when the day came, our wedding was a success. Our families were united and happy, as us. Later that day, we decided to rest. We were going to drive to the surprise location. Everything was a success. We had so much fun on our honeymoon. A few nights after our honeymoon, she wanted us to have a talk about expanding our family and having kids. Mind you, I had forgotten to tell her about my infertility problem, and as much as she was my wife, I was not comfortable to share such a sensitive thing about me with her. I was scared that she would leave me and find a guy who was fertile and would be able to impregnate her. Was I wrong to keep that as a secret? Weeks turned to months, and Faith was really persistent about wanting to have her own family. She kept reminding me every time it was like she was obsessed with having a child. I don't know if she was obsessed with having a child with me, or she just wanted a child that would call her mom. Unfortunately, I couldn't grant her wishes and give her what she wanted. There was this day when she came back from work. Chuckles. I couldn't believe what she did or said. So she came back from work. That day I was not working, I had got a day off. She told me that she had removed her contraceptive preventing implant. Mind you, I didn't even know that she got an implant. So she removed her implant so that it would be easy to fall pregnant, and her doctor had told her that she was very much fertile. So in order for her to fall pregnant fast, she had to take some supplements and check her ovulation dates, which would be a great time to try for a child since her eggs would be active. I couldn't believe my ears. I told her that I didn't want any children, at least not at that time. I didn't give her any reason why I didn't want or was not ready for any children. I know it was wrong and selfish of me, but I couldn't risk losing the only woman I had ever loved, especially not when she had so much eagerness and obsession in having a child. What she told me really shocked me because I was not expecting it. So one day she asked why I was not showing any interest in starting or expanding our own family. I know that time I had a chance to come clean, but I was too ashamed, so I lied and told her that I was just not interested and I wanted to focus on my career. A week later, she then suggested that she was resigning or retiring from her work because she needed to focus on building her family and be a wife, which meant she wanted or expected me to provide for her with everything while she was a housewife. I just don't understand women sometimes, but I shouldn't have been surprised because she was influenced by those reality shows she was watching. And she once told me that her wish was to find a man who would provide for her so she won't have to work, but be a housewife. A year passed and things were no longer the same at my house. My wife had started changing on me. Well, she had started changing when I didn't allow her to quit her job since I was just a financial advisor, which was not a job that paid fortunes. My salary wouldn't even cover half of what she needed as a woman. Another thing, she had started getting impatient about getting pregnant. She would get angry at me whenever I refused her sex. She was not always in the house and had started traveling a lot, saying it was work-related. My conscience couldn't allow me to believe what she had told me. My mind was telling me that she was cheating. All those thoughts were running wild in my head to a point that confronted her and she denied my allegations. I developed trust issues, and what Nosifo had once put me through came back. We had fights about that because she had started going out a lot, saying she was going to her parents' house and she would be sleeping over or going to work. I ignored all that because I had thought that she wouldn't lie about going to her parents' house and work, plus to me she didn't appear as the person who would just be unfaithful. She was my innocent angel, not knowing that she was actually a devil's agent hiding under a white innocent cloth. Her visiting my parents became a trap song because I had somehow believed it and went with the rhymes and lyrics. So, one weekend I decided to go and see her parents, as my in-laws, of course, thinking maybe I would see my wife. I had missed spending time with her, so I was going to check up on the rents, then come back with her. I didn't marry her to spend more time with her parents, right? When I got there, I didn't see her, so I told her mom that I had come to fetch my wife since I missed her and I wanted to spend my weekend with her. I agree. I had somehow neglected her because she had changed to an obsessed person who wanted a child so bad. And ever since, I didn't allow her to be a housewife. She was going out a lot. So, her mother told me that she had last seen her 2 months ago. That raised an eyebrow because whenever she was leaving, she would say she was going to her parents' house, and that was happening every weekend. I asked her about her lies when she came back, and the things she said to me were not what I had expected from her. She told me in the face that I was no longer satisfying her, so she got satisfaction outside our marriage. Which was not the worst thing she said, because her last words were that she had been tolerating me for too long. We had been trying for over a year for a baby, but she was not falling pregnant. She even told me that I was less of a man and she wanted a divorce. I got furious and I ended up slapping her. Luckily, we didn't get married under community property, but I tried fighting for her, but her mind was made up and she even threatened to open a restraining order for me. I love this woman too much. I still had plans for our marriage, very big plans, but she decided to just throw herself in someone else's bed just because she was not getting pregnant, and I was no longer satisfying her. I won't lie, even today when I think about her, I become enraged. She moved out of our marital home. My father had given us land as our wedding gift to build my house, where I would be staying with my wife and kids, so I did as he had said. She was a gone girl. Father called a meeting between two families, mine and Faith's, to try and solve the issue that we were facing. Faith didn't show up at that meeting, so the two families looked at me as a man who couldn't control his house and was controlled by a woman. 2 weeks later, I saw her with a man in some restaurant. They were cozy, and even a small child would see that those people were in a relationship. So I granted her a divorce. At least I didn't lose anything to her. I couldn't fight for something that was not going anywhere. The ship had sunk, so it was time to move on and restart my life. Since then, I vowed to never fall in love again. The person I had thought had the qualities of a good woman showed me that no woman is perfect. They are all evil and manipulative. She made me believe that she loved me, but she chose someone else over me just because she couldn't get pregnant. So see that God works in mysterious ways. A year and a couple of months later, she came back home. She was not alone, but with a small child. The thing she said was, she came to introduce me to my child. She had fallen pregnant before she got into a relationship with the man I once saw her with, and worse things happened. She found out that the man was married and was not willing to leave his wife for her. I just told her that she should go back to that man and introduce the baby to him because the baby looked nothing like me or any of my family members. When she refused to go, I called her parents and brother and asked them to come and fetch her. Then I told her that there was no way the baby was mine because I was infertile. Then I showed her the papers from the doctor. She couldn't believe it, so I asked her to never contact me again or set foot in my house because I would murder her if I ever see her again. That day I decided to be calm and not do the unthinkable to her. Later on, her parents and brother came and fetched her. I was so disappointed and angry at myself for investing all my love to someone who would do the same thing the person I didn't even love once did to me. Fear woman, how do you think I should have dealt with the situation? I need some advice.